All right, well, welcome everybody. We're really excited for you to join. Thank you so much. We know it's a busy morning, a lot of competing meetings this morning, but we really appreciate everyone coming here and joining us today for this HILT meeting. Good information meeting and lots of engagement here. I want to welcome everyone, so thank you. If you want to go ahead and introduce yourself into the group chat, if you have not done so yet, please include your name, your organization, and also your title, and we'll get started here in just a minute. Thank you. Thanks a lot for joining. Good morning, Mardia.
Good morning.
Thanks for joining.
Hey, good morning, Mardia. Are you back on the West Coast time, or are you still out east with the grandbabies?
I'm West Coast. I was actually in Hawaii.
What?
Yes, I abandoned the grandbaby and went to Oahu.
All right, I think we have to have a new game. Instead of Where's Waldo, it's going to be Where's Mardia.
Yeah, didn't take the little darling with me.
Fantastic. Well, good deal. I know we're probably going to be short a couple of our workforce partners today because the Washington Workforce Association conference is happening at the same time. And Abby, good to see you there yesterday in the hopefully, I'm not sure if you're still there today or you just were a Wednesday person as well.
I was just a Wednesday person as well.
Mm.
Yeah, good to see you too yesterday.
Good deal. All right, but our industry partners are the most important folks. So, man, we got some good representation here today. James, we want to get started?
Yes, we'll get started right now. 1 second here. I'm going to re-share my screen. And here we go. All right, well, good morning, everyone. We're really excited that you're here. Thanks a lot for joining. We are here for our fall quarterly meeting at the HILT. And once again, if you can go ahead and click your video feed, you can rename yourself with your name, your type of organization, and also your where you work. And then you can also include in the group chat your name, your organization, and your title. So we will get started right now. And we want to welcome Wendy. And I believe Wendy is having a few technical difficulties this morning getting onto the meeting.
I don't think she was able to connect. I think that her system actually crashed.
Oh,
as she was
no.
getting on. So
Gotcha. So
I can jump in here and just say welcome to everyone. And just a reminder, I think we at the beginning of our meetings, we always just realign on what our purpose and vision is as a collaborative. So a reminder that our purpose as an industry collaborative is to be a network of diverse, small and large healthcare providers in Seattle, King County, Snohomish and Pierce counties. Who come together to share and take action on improving access to a skilled healthcare workforce. And a reminder that we've been coming together since May of 2018 and focused on improving equity and diversity in the region's healthcare workforce. And we have a number of updates today. And I think we are going to start with the Talent Pipeline Committee update, which is very meaty as we get close to, if you can believe it, getting close to the end of the calendar year and beginning to turn the page onto events that are going to happen next year. And we'll have a chance to hear about some other ways to plug in some updates on the overall student experience package, which the Talent Pipeline Committee oversees, and then some updates from the Behavioral Health Work Group. So I think we can go ahead and jump in with the Talent Pipeline Committee, and Joe and I will be partnering together on this update. So I think we can go to the next slide and start with the just a reminder that what is the Talent Pipeline Committee? So some of you have had an opportunity to participate in this committee. This is a working space where we are focused on how do we actualize some of HILT goals related to collaborative talent development, workforce diversity, and equity. And so we really serve as a working committee of the overall HILT collaborative. Our focus is to develop actionable plans for implementation of the core components of the student experience package, which is what we are calling the body of work that we engage in around Talent Pipeline. And then our job is to bring those plans back to engage the full HILT in those the activities related to that package. So we recently tried to articulate a little bit more clearly some of the guiding principles that guide us in this work, because as this work grows, it's important to remember, make sure that we are all clear on sort of what are those driving forces behind this work, because there's more and more opportunity to be involved in more and more things, and we have to decide where our focus will be. And so the sort of key guiding principles that we have articulated in this in the committee are that to realign on our focus on middle and high school students. So that's the primary, though not 100% exclusive, that's the primary focus of this Talent Pipeline work, with a priority on students that have that are in communities, schools that have been, I think, traditionally under-resourced and in many cases marginalized, and maybe not fully connected to the workforce opportunities that we have and that we desperately need to fill in industry, and to stay data-driven around the specific careers that we focus on. And we do that by focusing activities that are meaningful for middle and high school age students, as well as prioritizing our outreach and engagement to students that are BIPOC, low income, and or first generation English language learners. And then we try to always make sure that we're highlighting jobs that are in demand. There are obviously some variations across the industry in terms of what is sort of the most pressing needs, but we certainly have many, many areas of shared need. And so trying to focus on those areas where there's high need in industry, high opportunity, but also connected to pathways that lead to careers that provide living wages. This is just a slide to show you that there have been many, many different organizations and HILT members that have been participating so far, off and on in different parts of the Talent Pipeline Committee. This is probably our longest standing working committee as a HILT. It's a place where we have been doing work for several years. And so just a reminder, though, that anyone is more than welcome to participate in the actual committee meetings, the work of the committee, and then our job is always, though, to bring the action back to the full HILT membership. So whether or not you are actively participating in the committee, there are lots of opportunities to engage in the activities that come out of that group. And on that note, just a reminder, I mentioned before the student experience package, which is the title that we've given to the body of work that we've been focused on in the Talent Pipeline Committee. And there really are 4 primary components to that package. One is a video library where we've had quite a bit of activity, especially over the last year. There are 97 videos currently uploaded there. The Speakers Bureau has really been a place where we can collaboratively as industry engage with those teachers, community groups, others in our community who are anxious for the opportunity and eager for the opportunity to connect students with members of the industry, people who are working in jobs, have professional experience in healthcare, who can really share real world experience and their experiences in terms of the pathways that they've had. And so that Speakers Bureau is designed to be kind of a centralized space where those requests can come in, and we as industry, instead of scrambling to try to individual group organizations trying to meet everything, we can collaboratively meet those needs, and collaboratively hopefully represent all the many opportunities that exist in the healthcare field. And so far we've spoken to over 1,300 students by way of 56 speaking engagements that have come through that Speakers Bureau. And then more recently, the opportunity to connect HILT members with mentoring opportunities through a few organizations in Washington State and more locally that run mentoring programs. We've had 11 members that recently signed up and have connected with 14 different mentoring opportunities. And then I always sort of describe this as the big kahuna, the kind of heavy lift throughout the year is our what is now fully established as an annual career event. And we have had several iterations of that now. Back in the pre-COVID days, a fully in-person event that has sort of went fully virtual over the last couple of years, and we're returning to a new approach in 2023, which we're really excited to talk about today, which is going to be a little bit of a hybrid. So a 2-day event that we're planning for March 2023, and we want to share some details today and make sure that HILT members walk away with very concrete steps they can take to engage in this event if they want to be part of it. So that takes us to the event. So what we are thinking and what we are now actively planning for, we have a lot of the pieces in place at this point, which is exciting to be kind of as far along as we are in our planning, is a 2-day event, the first of which will be an in-person day, a very hands-on opportunity for young people from high schools throughout the Puget Sound to come to an in-person hands-on career fair that will be supported through the HILT network and the University of Washington, leveraging some resources and learnings from their Doctors for a Day program. So we're hoping this will be very engaging and hands-on, and we will have students from across the Snohomish, King, and Pierce counties. And then the plan for day 2. So one of the takeaways that I think we got was from last year was that people were sort of exhausted from the sort of purely virtual experience that we were living in for several years. And it was time we were ready to move back into in-person. However, we definitely also, though, learned, I think, from our experience in the remote space that there was a lot more access for a much broader geography of students. And we didn't want to lose that piece, right? Like there are definitely going to be students in classrooms for whatever reason who are not going to be able to come participate in person. And so we wanted to preserve a bit of that, both the sort of the access and the I think the learnings that we've had around how to create a robust remote experience for students. And so the thinking here is that the day 2, that we'll be able to leverage some of the HILT network resources, in particular, leveraging the Kaiser Permanente Bellevue campus, where there is a space to hopefully, we're still working on some of the details, but to live stream an interactive medical case and a panel discussion of employers. And so there could be the opportunity for very eager students in classrooms to participate in both days, and the opportunity to participate in one or the other if that's a better fit for the broad array of schools that we're reaching out to. So that is kind of the overall vision. The goal really is to provide awareness, both awareness of the opportunities in healthcare, but also access to some resources, some concrete resources to take next steps. Again, with a focus on Snohomish, King, and Pierce high schools, with returning to that guiding principle of really deliberately doing our outreach in as an inclusive a way as possible, and with some deliberate outreach to students in schools and communities with BIPOC, low income, and first generation English language learners. And the specific timing is the 21st of March. The in-person event is scheduled to be held at the University of Washington. That timing is deliberate because it coincides with spring break for the University of Washington, which means that there will be better access in terms of parking, a little bit less traffic to contend with in the University District. And so it creates a bit of access on campus, and it's prior to when the spring breaks start hitting for the high school. So we're hoping this timing will really maximize the ability for students to participate. Big goal there is to reach approximately 500 students, the goal of 21 classrooms. And then the second day being on that Thursday, a couple of days later on the 23rd of March, with a goal of reaching about 250 high school students in 10 classrooms. So where are we in our planning? We've spent a lot of the fall, I think the end of the summer, and then into fall, sort of debriefing, confirming what we thought was the right approach based on previous experience and what we were hearing from the industry and community, and really aligning on a model. And then a little bit later in the fall, beginning to simultaneously do outreach to partners who might be sponsors of the event, and to high schools to begin to do that outreach to school buildings, because we know that it can be a long time horizon if students need to get onto buses and to somewhere else outside of their school, that the schools need a bit of an on-ramp to be able to make that possible. So those two things have started, and even some of the logistical, the space, reserving the space. So where are we? We're at the little smiley face here, where we are really beginning our outreach to invite participants and volunteers. So to invite those industry participants who want to come share their excitement and their passion about the jobs that they do, to volunteers who want to make sure that all the logistics hum, and we're able to manage a very, very large number of students in a large and probably loud space, and to begin to really anchor specific individuals in this kind of vision that we have for this two-day event. So that takes us to some of the specifics about how can people engage. If you are excited about this idea, there is, as I said, the goal is to reach about 500 high school students. And so there is going to be a need for a lot of support. The event itself is going to run from about 9 to 1, and we will need a variety of different folks participating and supporting different activities. And one is the folks to be part of sort of occupation leads, to be there to represent the work that they do in the specific occupation that they are in, as well as some resource tabling. And then a number of different logistical areas where we'll need volunteers. So helping to guide students throughout and sort of support student flow, welcoming and getting students in the door, making sure that students and teachers and chaperones know where to go and that they get to where they need to get to. Lunch is going to be provided, so there'll be some logistics there. So lots of different support will be needed. So then I just want to dive in a little bit about this notion of being an occupation lead and what does that mean? So the vision is that this is a little bit of like probably a slightly oversimplified vision of what we think the room might look like. And so the vision is that we will have students rotating through different sort of occupation stations or professional sort of sections that have a certain professional focus. And so these are some of the areas that we have so far on our list, largely because we have had this great opportunity to partner with the UW's Doctor for a Day program. And we know that we have some infrastructure to support these stations, but we're going to need lots of professionals, practitioners in the field who can support these stations to run and engage with students in some hands-on activities, so that students walk away with a deeper kind of knowledge of what does it mean to work as a dentist or a dental assistant? What is rehab medicine? You know, what are occupational therapists? What are physical therapists? What is speech language pathology? So hopefully a deeper dive to really expose students to not just the titles, the job titles, but a little bit about what that work looks like day to day. And then the other space that students can rotate through are kind of what we're calling a resource section. And so that might be a little more traditional tabling. Some of our organizations might be there to share, if you really want to learn more about Swedish or Seattle Children's or CMAR or Health Point, here are some different ways you can learn more about us. And that might be, take a look at some of our job openings, or here's how you might be, really make sure you're a competitive applicant, or we have a nurse camp every summer. Maybe you might want to consider applying for that, or the internship programs or other things. So there'll be a little bit of that resource tabling, I think, from industry, but it's also a space for support partners and education partners, I think, to share a little bit about how do you research training programs? How do you find the training programs the right thing for you if you have an occupation that you think you might be interested in? So that's the sort of high level vision, and that will have sort of a controlled flow where students are in groups that are sort of manageable with a chaperone, and then we have a lot of volunteers helping to support the flow. And then one more sort of deep dive, and then we want to talk about how you can plug in, is just taking dentistry as an example. That section of the UW, the Husky Ballroom, might have, it might actually have 6 tables with a couple of professionals at each of those tables, so that students can come in sort of slightly smaller groups to an individual table and participate in a hands-on activity. So the idea is that you have this sort of large group of students that might be coming to a station together, and then they're breaking into different tables at that station to make the actual engagement possible, right? Because otherwise you're just going to have sort of this massive crush of students in one area. So the idea is to have these sort of stations, and within those stations, individual tables, so that we can spread students out and they can really engage. So you can get a sense from that about what we're really going to need in terms of numbers of folks to plug in and be part of that to make it possible. And then the resource section, I think I kind of covered this already, but this might be, depending on who's interested and available to be part of this might be a kind of a mix, a complement of healthcare organizations who are kind of are doing a little bit more traditional tabling, and as well as schools, and maybe there might even be some community organizations that are, there to talk about scholarships and funding resources, those kinds of things. So that piece will take shape as well, depending on who is available and interested in engaging in that space. So that takes us to, I think, kind of the ask or the opportunity, which is, if your organization is interested in being part of this event, which we very much hope you will, it's shaping up to be a pretty exciting, and I think it's going to be a very high energy event. What we have today is a set of talking points, and Joe, thank you for putting this in the chat. There are a set of talking points that if you want to be interested, you could go ahead and fill out this interest form that Joe has linked to. You can do that right now and let us know that you're interested. If you are more the sort of person who's going to then turn to your organization and say, hey, there's this really great opportunity, who wants to be part of it? We did put together just some very simple talking points to help you in your busy day share this with others in your organization. So those talking points do include a link to the interest form, and then it also includes a link to the flyer, in case, just as a reference point. So if people want to understand, like, what is the purpose of this event, or what is there's a flyer there that can help with that as well. What I would say is that what we're really looking for now is to get that initial sense of interest, right? So by about mid-December, it would be great to know who is interested in what. And because that will let us as a planning group go back and say, oh boy, we have 50 nurses and nobody from behavioral health, right? So we need to think about how we're going to plug in those nurses that are interested and excited. And we need to do some more targeted outreach. So we need to find out where there might be some capacity to plug in, for example, from behavioral health, or we have a number of pharmacists, but boy, it really would be great to get in the pharmacy station to have some pharmacists and some farm techs and maybe some farm assistants, so that we can really show that team, how that team works together in that space. So what we are asking for, even though March seems like it is forever from now, we would love to get an initial sense of where the interest in capacity is to the greatest extent we can by about the middle of December, so that when our planning group meets again, we're able to do a kind of an initial inventory and say, okay, here's what it looks like. Where do we go from here to make sure that we're going to have a successful event? So I will pause here. I think the real I think point that we want to create some space for here is, one, if you want to sign yourself up right now, you can take a minute to do that. But we want to make sure that if anybody has any questions, we can answer those. If those talking points are helpful, great. If you really wish there was something else in those talking points or they're going to create confusion, can we clear that up? What else do you need to know, and what questions do you have, so that you can determine where and how your organization might plug in? And Joe, you can let me know if I missed anything. Hopefully I hit all the right points.
Yeah, Shauna, I think you hit all the points. and so I think just wanted to emphasize that if you are interested in being involved in this event, the interest form shouldn't take you, max 2 minutes. And that would just give us a good understanding of, where everybody's desires are, and we can kind of move from there. But we are super excited to kind of get this event going. And I think it really is just kind of asking HILT folks to get involved, because students are already invited, and we've heard from teachers and educators that they're excited about this. So yeah.
Great. I did notice in the chat, Joe, and I know you responded in the chat, but a great question from Suzanne around, is there space for any IT-oriented careers? Because we know technology is the backbone of our healthcare system. Joe, I'm assuming we would be kosher with having IT careers represented at the event?
We are kosher with that, Ryan. So if you could just, let us know what occupations you're considering, we can think about the logistics from there.
Yeah. I think we're very open. I think we've sort of anchored some of our initial planning around some specific occupational disciplines where we know we have some sort of foundational support, so we feel confident we can pull it off. But we are very open, because if there is excitement and energy and availability around another occupation, that's kind of part of what the interest form is trying to help us get to, is where is that, where is their capacity, excitement, engagement, because we want to make sure it's only as meaningful for the students as the individual practitioners are engaged, right? So we want to get a bunch of folks there that are excited about what they do, that want to share that with a group of students who maybe are considering healthcare and maybe have never heard of some of the occupations that are there. So absolutely, if there is some energy and availability from IT. I know we have an informatics nurse who's been plugging into some of the Speakers Bureau activities. So that IT is a big space. It could be a lot of things.
Just wanted to answer Elizabeth's question here. So I know this is a healthcare event, but to take actionable next steps to go into the healthcare profession, our education partners and CBOs are extremely important. And so Elizabeth, there will be that resource section where we'll have the traditional tabling, and that does include not only healthcare organizations, but community colleges and other education institutions and CBOs as well. So if there is a desire to table for your organization, then please fill out that interest form and we can get that going. And just 2 shout outs to the Renton Technical College and Atlantic Street Center and Public Health, Seattle and King County. Thank you for expressing your interest and looking forward for more HILT involvement.
That's great. Thanks, Joe.
Any final questions before we move on? Anything that anyone needs clarified before they can do outreach, or anything more you could use to support your outreach within your organizations?
Shauna and Joe, could you send me the link to the interest forms, particularly for colleges to be interested in tabling at the resource fair, and we can send that out to our system. Or particularly, we'll emphasize, of course, the 3 counties that you're focused on.
Yeah, absolutely. The links are in the chat right now, but we will follow up from this meeting with links to with all of that, including the talking points themselves actually have the links embedded. So hopefully you don't have to do too much work to craft your message. You can hopefully pull some of that and just fine tune it however it works best for you. So hopefully that helps minimize the time that you need to spend on figuring out what you want to say. And then it has the link to the interest form and the flyer embedded in those talking points, if those are things you want to include in your outreach.
Yeah, thanks. I just had trouble with the opening up the docs.
Oh, okay. Did anybody else have trouble with, so when you clicked on the link, you weren't able to get to the documents?
That's correct.
Oh,
But that's okay. I mean, we'll figure it
Yeah.
out.
We'll take a look at that, and we can definitely, maybe the talking points we can also attach to our, when we follow up with an email, we'll attach the talking points with the, in maybe a document as well to the, just to make sure, cover our bases. All right. Well, I'm going to hand it over to Joe to talk to us a little bit more about the Speakers Bureau, which I mentioned a little bit earlier in the presentation.
Yes, thank you, Shauna, and thank you all for your interest in the career event. And while the career event is the big kahuna, we also have another kahuna, perhaps not as big, but important, the Speakers Bureau. So the Speakers Bureau, we connect healthcare professionals to classrooms. I just wanted to kind of give an update that with the school year beginning in September, we've had 10 requests so far. 6 of those are being fulfilled or have been fulfilled, but there are still 4 that are outstanding that are waiting for healthcare involvement. So just some specifics here. Everett High School, they're having like a career day at their high school. And so they're just looking for one more healthcare professional, ideally in the support services, to kind of talk about what their career is. This will be in person. Meeker Middle School, she has some 3 robotics classes that she wants her classes to understand what healthcare careers are. So there's some interest around there. And then with Chief South High School, we have 2 requesters kind of talking about a desire for BIPOC healthcare professionals to talk about not only their careers, but also the challenges and triumphs as being BIPOC professionals. So if your organization is interested, or you know of anyone that's interested, next slide, please. You could just go ahead and reach out to me over email or text me or call me on my work cell, and I'm happy to kind of get you connected there. So I just wanted to briefly touch on that there have been very specific requests, and there are ways to get involved. And I will stop there. And if there are any questions or thoughts around that, happy to respond. And I think next week with the weekly ways to plug in, we will kind of have a way for people to kind of see which requests are still outstanding. So then you can choose which ones that you'd like to be part of. So that'll be another way for us to reach out to you all.
And here is everyone's contact information. If you want to go ahead and jot that down, or Joe and Shauna, they can definitely put their email into the group chat as well. You'll have their direct contact to follow up with any questions. So thank you, Shauna and Joe. Really fantastic moves with the student experience package, and we are really excited. This is a great event for everyone to kind of lean in and be part of this spectacular event that's happening in March. And as we know, March is just right around the corner. It's going to come fast. It's like, wow. So we're really excited for that, but thank you both. We're going to move on a little bit here just to talk about the ways to plug in. As you know, this is a message that comes out from the convener team and captains out to the HILT network. And what we do with the ways to plug in is we look for opportunities from partners that industry can lean in. So these are, good events or occasions or even work that industry might be interested in. And what we've done is we've done an online submission form. You can see here, the link is there. I'm going to go ahead and put this link also into the group chat. When you have an event that's coming up or you want some industry to be able to plug in, you can go ahead and fill out this form. This will come out basically every quarter to the network. And what we're doing is we're going to be looking at the mid-month per quarter to gain that information. So what that means is when we have 3 months, January, February, and March for quarter one, we just want that information by the second month of each quarter. So then we'll include that in the ways to plug in. So to all of our HILT partners, keep those events coming in to us. We will be sharing those out. As of right now, we're going to be taking those in November. So we're right in that time frame right now. And I went ahead and put that link into the group chat. So go ahead and just fill that out and include that, and we'll send that out for the HILT as well. So thank you everyone for sharing those events, and we're real excited to keep that moving forward. Next, we're going to move on to Ryan Davis.
Good deal. So just a quick promo. James just put that in the chat. It took me all of 2 minutes to sign up. So this is a great time right now before we get distracted by our text messages and emails coming in for the later of the day. Definitely complete that so that we have a sense of who is able to support. And again, pass that on to your friends and family. Pass it on to everybody that can contribute. One thing though, just as a quick reminder, we are still looking for funding support for all this amazing work. A shout out to Children's Hospital for being able to come in with a $25,000 industry contribution. And I'm also happy to announce that SJI will be able to come in with a $25,000 support as well. We are looking for a few more providers to come in at that level. We talked about this the last time. So if you are able to help, and I know a couple folks are still navigating the process on their end, feel free to reach out to me directly. I can help work through that and how we can get the funds to be able to support this work. There are direct expenses, there are staffing expenses, and software expenses to keep all this great work going. We've been fortunate to get some different grant support as we go, but having that industry support or that partner support is really, really critical. So if your organization can support, if you have any extra money left this year that you're just like, oh my goodness, we have to spend some grant money, we are happy to help you with that problem, or happy to help with next year as well. So please definitely reach out, and no amount is too small. Literally, we know that some of our community organizations, if they can come in with $500 or $1,000 to support this, it's great, because having those funds allows us to have matching dollars to go for other grants. And we are, super thrilled, to be able to pool all of those together to support the great work that's being done. So I will be in touch soon, but if you want to reach out to me and schedule a quick time to chat, or shoot me an email, or arrange a Dropbox of suitcase full of cash, any of those things would be acceptable to keep this great thing going. And again, thanks to all those that have contributed or are working through that process in their organizations right now. James, back to you.
All right. Thank you, Ryan. Lots of good ways to lean in and get involved. We're transitioning now, and we're going to introduce Vonetta Barton, the Deputy Project Director at the University of Washington School of Social Work. We've got a behavioral health work group update. Vonetta.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much, James. It's really great to be here. And I think you might have our slides, James. So I'll just go ahead and get started. I'm going to camera off while I'm speaking. Then if we have time, I'll certainly answer questions. I'll listen. I'll get that prompt from you. So thank you. So really, thank you, not only to you, James and Ryan, but also to Shalane and Susie. I'll give a brief update since HILT's September quarterly meeting. And next slide is that, or I'm sorry, you can stay on that slide. I'm sorry about that. Kind of forgot where I was here. So one thing I will share is that many have helped to launch the Washington State Behavioral Health Workforce Development Initiative. And to date, the 20 graduate students that have graduated are all employed in the behavioral health field. So we're really excited about that. The first full cohort of students who began in the fall of 2021 are now in their second year of their program. They are participating in our career development activities and will graduate this spring. In September, this past September, we welcomed 60 additional students, and we held an orientation last month. So next slide, we have a total of 126 students participating in the initiative from across the state. 36% of them are from Eastern Washington and 64% are from Western Washington. We have 5.3 million that we've awarded thus far, so we're really excited about that. And we have a goal of 415 graduates. And so we'll have about $17 million to award, and we're focused on Brown and Black students, low income, and of course, Eastern Washington, because this is a statewide initiative. So we're focused on geographic diversity also. Next slide. And so as Ryan was saying, it's hard to believe that the year is coming to a close. I think, James, you mentioned that also. There are a couple items that are on the horizon for us. One is that clinical mental health counseling, marriage and family therapy, and social work programs are currently recruiting and selecting students. So it's important to know that higher education programs actually choose their students and that are going to participate in the initiative. And so if you know of people who would like to receive a Balmer Behavioral Health Scholarship, which is actually a conditional grant, it's not a scholarship, it's a conditional grant, they can contact me and I can connect them with the partner university. Should also say that in January, we plan to launch an online application portal, and we're also gearing up for the 2023 legislative session. This supports our strategy number 6, which is supporting better behavioral health policy. And we've been working with the Healthcare Authority and the Washington Council on Behavioral Health and others. All of this work is tied to our 5th strategy, which is around data collection and data sharing, which will be a public resource for those interested in behavioral health workforce, career and employment data. And it's our goal to expand our collaboration. So the Balmer Group has invested, as many of you know, $39 million to support every level of training and employment in the behavioral health workforce. And so this provides a great opportunity for collaborating. And then lastly, at each of our convenings, our partners, especially the students, have expressed their gratitude for this incredible opportunity, as well as their interest in the behavioral health field. So there's great enthusiasm from the students that are participating. Our next slide is, while many of these messages are relayed to me, it is the work of a number of colleagues at the School of Social Work and the other 12 universities that are making this work come together. And then we greatly appreciate the input of the HILT Behavioral Health Committee. So thank you, Shalane and Susie, for your leadership and support. And again, James, I'm happy to answer questions now or later via email. So thank you very much.
Great. Thank you, Vanetta. Any questions for Vanetta that she can address right now?
I have one question. Vanetta, you mentioned the conditional grants, and my understanding is the funding is conditional on a post-graduation service commitment. Students make a commitment to work for some period of time in community health. Is that right?
It's at this point with the private funding, it's community behavior health agencies, and it's a very select group. This is a pilot group, so just wanted to let you know we had to start out small. And so the agencies, it's outpatient services, organizations that provide outpatient services in mental health, substance use disorder, and rehabilitative case management. The public policy work that we're doing with HCA, with Healthcare Authority and Washington Council for Behavioral Health and others, that will expand this and the work of the initiative, and it'll include other primary care settings and institutions. But right now it's focused on community behavioral health agencies. So thinking of ACRS or Atlantic Street Center, Therapeutic Health Services, Sound Health, Frontier, and others. Is
Okay.
that helpful, Shauna?
Yeah, it is helpful. I mean, I think we obviously at Seattle Children's are primarily a pediatric specialty space, but we do have primary care in our two Othello children's clinic locations. And behavioral health is certainly an integral part of the services that are provided there. And so just kind of, curious about staying current on where things are going and making sure that if there are places that we should be plugging in, that we're following that carefully. So that's super helpful. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. And we do see an expansion. This is you might recall that the first 20 students were quick start students. I think I've mentioned it before when you were starting out with the funds, or when we were starting out, we were told, we need to get this going quickly, and we've done that. But we also know that there's such a great need. And so we're hoping that through the legislation that we will see over the next, hopefully, months and years, we'll see great expansion. So thank you.
Yeah, and I see that Susie has her hand up. Susie, you're on mute.
Vanetta, I have a question. You mentioned if we have team members, people currently working in community behavioral health that are interested in the Ballmer scholarships, you said for them to reach out to you?
They can I just encourage people to reach out to me. They can, it's just easier. The website that you see on the screen also has an email address associated with it. So I get lots of different inquiries. And because it is 13 universities with accredited clinical mental health counseling, marriage, family therapy, and social work programs, there are primary contacts at Seattle U, at PLU, at Gonzaga, at Eastern. So yes, if someone has any questions, they can reach out to me. And I'm hoping that as we build this greater connection, hopefully there'll be employees that will be participating. But I know that's on the horizon. I hope that's on the horizon. But
well,
for
that's
now,
what I'm interested in. Yeah, thank you, Vanetta.
Yes. Yes. Anything else?
Great. Well, thank you, Vanetta. Really appreciate that timely information, and we're very excited to keep updated with all the academics and students and programs. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
All right, we're transitioning over to workforce systems. I'm going to give it over to Shauna.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, Vanetta, for that great update and for all the updates in this committee work group space. The next item on the agenda was, I think, just a reflection coming out of our last information exchange about some talk, I think, about connecting to resources that while we may have in the healthcare industry, we may have many individuals who are, and this kind of tags into your question, Susie, I think people who are working in healthcare, but do have ambitions to do additional education or training to take on a new role in healthcare. We all within industry, I think we have folks who are in our organizations who are doing that sort of thing, and we have resources inside our organizations that are designed to support that. But knowing that there's a range of resources that are often necessary for someone to really be able to successfully engage in and balance both school and work. And I think there are a number of resources that exist in the public workforce system that are either not fully known, or it's just not clear always for those of us who sit in industry how someone might access those. And I think there was a desire to maybe share a little bit more detail about some key resources, which you see here on the slide, so that just for awareness, but I think also so that we as industry partners who are interested in supporting our incumbents to advance in their careers, we can ask the questions we need to ask about how can we help direct, right? Without becoming experts in every one of these things, which is probably not realistic. I think that many of us have been down that road and failed. But to be able to at least have some high level knowledge and then a little maybe actionable detail that we could share with whoever the right team is in our organization, whether that's your benefits team or you have a workforce planning team, or a learning team, whatever that might be, that we're able to give maybe some talking points and some more information so that like we might support students, for example, in our tuition assistance program, but we are, within the IRS guidelines, that's a max of $5,250 a year. That's for many, many programs, that is just not a sufficient level of funding support. And there's other resources out there that students could be leveraging. And people who are busy working and going to school don't always have time to search those out. So that is the intention behind this section. And I think we are going to do a little bit of a round robin or a little bit of a lightning round here to share some information, starting with Christopher Carter, who is the Dean of Allied Health at Renton Technical College. So Chris, I'll hand it to you, and thank you for being here today.
Just want to thank you guys for having us and giving us opportunity to speak. So you can go to the slide. We currently have 18 programs. I'm not going to go through all 18 programs. That's why I provided the link for everyone. But I will tell you this, as far as our duration programs, time spent by students, we have programs as short as 5 weeks that also span to 2 years. So for educators that are on the call, we have things like phlebotomy, and then of course we have registered nurse. A lot of times students come in, most of our students that are in health and human services, they know exactly what they want out of their careers. And so sometimes it's an easy fix. Although right now, most of the colleges in Washington, throughout the state, we're at an 18% decrease in enrollment. Yet we recognize that there is a true need for workforce because there's a deficiency. So what we're trying to do to combat that is a couple things. We're focusing on our enrollment, but we also want to partner with, industry partners in order to come up with solutions. So that third bullet that you see, the bridge to health and human services, that was something that was created for us at the college in order for us to have students persist as well as complete programs. We've had students that will come into our programs and complete the program and then go on their clinical rotation and then say, I don't really want to do this particular career. So this class explores all 18 of our programs. It lets students know what the educational requirements are. It also talks about salary expectations on an entry level, as well as continuing education and things of that nature. We've seen our completion rise as a result of having something like this in place, specifically with our BIPOC student populations. We serve a BIPOC population of 75% at Renton Technical College. Our college and career pathways area study is the largest at our college. The problem with that, or the concern, is that although they are the largest, they're not transitioning into any prof tech programs. So right now, as me as a dean working with other deans, that's one of our major goals for this year. We look at that 18% enrollment decrease and we say, well, we have a couple thousand students in this one area. Why aren't they transitioning? So that's the question that we're answering right now. We've also implemented the bridge course into that particular area of study, just to give students kind of an interest of what we do in our particular building. And so far, I mean, it's not a couple of thousand, but we've transitioned about 5% of those students, which we look at as a positive. We look at it as us being able to do that and continue. We want to see those numbers rise. We have affiliation agreement with pretty much every health network in Washington. And I don't think that that's the issues that we're facing. I think from a standpoint of affiliations, that's something that we utilize for clinical placement. Our ideal around placement now is us looking at how can we partner better for students. And I think one of the things that we need to look at, and this is for any of the partners that are here on this call today, I think we really need to take a deep dive into apprenticeships. I think we now need to, if you have a need at your particular facility, and for example, there are incumbent workers there that want to become workers within allied health, apprenticeship will be the way to go, because it gives them a leg up on completing a program, but also still working full time. And then something with, as far as apprenticeships, they will actually complete those hours, do their clinical rotation there with you, and because that's a familiar site for them. So we look at that as a win-win situation for everybody. Renton Technical College, we have 18 programs, but we have certificates, we have associate degrees, and we have what we call associate transfer degrees. Within our programs, we have what we call stop-out points. So there may be a person that comes to us that's already in industry. They don't actually need, a whole 2 years of training. They may not need a year of training. They may only need that 1 quarter of training. So in several of our programs, we have it set up where students can come in and just take what they need, and then they go on their way. So that's what stop-out points are. So in many of our programs, a lot of students can complete a certificate in as little as 5 weeks, maximum about 2 quarters, and then they have to go on their clinical rotation and then complete the program. So the reason why we designed it that way was because we wanted to make sure we were truly serving students. I did a needs assessment of the last couple of cohorts that have come in. And basically what the needs assessment showed was that I don't really need all of these classes. I'm here because at this point, I'm a single mom. I'm 28 years old. I have 2 children. I can only come to school in the evenings, and I'm just trying to get to work. So that is the main reason why we pivoted and made sure that we could actually truly serve students for what they come to RTC for. Next slide, please. Currently, we have, it's kind of weird, it's kind of funny. I laugh a little bit because although we're located in Renton, Washington, for a very, very long time, we did not have an affiliation agreement with the Renton Unified School District. We do now. We've created both dual credit and Running Start. And for those of you that don't know what dual credit is, it's where students come in, they take classes. Most of these students are in a track for allied health. They've determined that they want to get into allied health careers. And basically what it is, they come in and take classes from us, and then simultaneously they're working and completing their high school diploma. And then for Running Start, this is specifically for high school juniors and seniors, kind of the same concept. They come in, they take 100 level courses, 200 level courses, and then they get college credit for or toward one of our certificates and or degrees. I think I saw Wobbs is here on the call today. We were tasked with creating a partnership with Providence Health. That particular program, we developed two new programs, which are the Allied Health Clinical Engineer and Allied Health Project Manager programs. The way that it was designed for high school students was that they take or have 2 internship opportunities. They go in and take, completing their high school diploma, and then that second year they come in and they complete the core courses for the program. The issue with that was I don't think students really understood what these particular careers entail. A lot of times when I go out and I talk to young people about either coming to RTC or getting into allied health or health and human services careers, they pretty much have a mindset if they can't go to University of Washington or Wazoo or Oregon State, that they really don't think is worth their while. Until I speak to parents and I tell parents that I have a way to pay for your child's education. And then I get a lot of attention based on that. So what we have kind of told parents is that if you have a child that comes to us and they take the basic minimum certificate program, they will be hired. And then that particular organization, most have either 75% to 100% tuition reimbursement, means that the students won't have collect a lot of debt at the end. And that's something that we're trying to prevent. Another reason I think why we created these programs is because a lot of students they want to get into allied health, but they don't want to get into your traditional allied health programs like surgery and, blood and things of those natures, teeth, as far as dental assisting. So these particular two, the clinical engineer program is just students being able to fix, the machinery and computer systems within a hospital. And then the project management one kind of speaks for itself. Next slide, please. So the current partnerships we have with Providence Health for those two programs. Again, Allied Health Clinical Engineer and Allied Health Project Management. We also have a partnership through the Stryker Corporation, where through our Central Service Technician program, we generally will bring in about 30 students per cohort, of which 10 of those students, once they complete the program, will automatically work for Stryker. Stryker is the company that kind of outsources central service technicians for Overlake Hospital. So once the students complete their clinical and they're working for Stryker, that time is used as a probationary period. And after that probationary period is up, students are actually hired permanently with Overlake Hospital. Again, we have various affiliations and MOUs. We're now working with the Muckleshoot Tribe. We run the CNA program out of there. We currently are in talks to run shorter programs out of there, and eventually we will be running degree programs out of there. And then our high school partnerships, I mentioned the Renton Unified School District, Federal Way Unified School District, as well as the High School Consortium, which has about 7 different high school districts in there. We look at allied health and health and human services as the future for these careers. I mean, looking at the idea that Providence came up with, I think it was brilliant because they looked at one or two different aspects. One, we had the pandemic. 2, as a result of the pandemic, you had a lot of people that were leaving positions. 3, you had a lot of individuals that were facing retirement. So they came to us and said, well, let's engage students in the 11th grade. And, they go through this program for 2 years. And by the time they're 18 years old, they'll come out making a minimum of $58,000 a year, which again, for a 18-year-old individual, that's pretty good to come out with that. We also connected to Bates College. Bates Technical College also has clinical engineering. So we established an affiliation with them so that if a student wanted to go further after the certificate, they could also achieve or obtain an AST degree. And then Bates has an affiliation with the University of Washington for a Bachelor of Science for the same subject matter. So if a student comes into that program within a 4-year span, they can actually have the certificate, the associate transfer degree, as well as a Bachelor of Science degree in clinical engineering.
Thank you,
Next
Chris.
slide, please.
This is great. This is really great information. And I think a really important reminder that, we have, I think Dan alluded to this early on, that we are very fortunate in Washington State to have 35 community and technical colleges in our communities, in addition to the 4-year institutions that we have. And so I think a reminder that if we have incumbents, particularly who are interested in those allied health careers and some of those high needs for us, like medical assisting, surgical technologist, pharmacy technician, many of those allied health roles where we have a great need. I think we're thinking about, like, where we have tuition assistance, can we be making sure that we're getting people connected with those training programs that are in their community that, as I think you mentioned, Chris, I think can be undertaken in a period of time that is maybe manageable and with some support that allows them to do that without acquiring a lot of debt. So really appreciate that that update. And I think that the kinds of things you described are happening at many schools throughout all of the communities that we as healthcare employers are working in. I think for time purposes, we need to move on to Ryan. I think you were going to share some updates on the Washington College grant, so a little bit on the funding side. Well, you might be on. Oh, there you go.
Oh, yep. Thanks for the handoff, James. Did you get my slides incorporated here, or am I winging this bad boy? Okay, good deal. So quick game, really quick. I want everyone to use the reactions button. So we're going to play fact or crap. So if the statement, I'm going to go through these statements, and if you can use your reaction button and put a green check mark if you think the statement is true, or that red X if you think the statement is false. So if you go to reactions and then click on that, that menu will pull up and there's emojis and things, but we're going to use that green check mark or that red X to determine. So first question, Washington State has one of the most generous state-funded financial aid programs in the nation. Give me a green if you think that's a fact, or give me a red X if you think that that is crap. I'm seeing a bunch of, I see one red X. We got some disagreements here. All right. Oh, another red X. Actually, that is fact. The Washington College Grant is one of the most generous state-funded financial aid programs. And I'm going to talk about why on the next slide. That in addition to the funding that it provides, it has some other tools that are really great to make all those amazing programs that Chris shared about affordable. Question number 2, college financial aid is for traditional college students and not adult learners. Fact or crap? So if you think that's a fact, that college financial aid is only for traditional students, good deal. I see our education partners with some X's there. All right, I see a couple green things, but that is absolutely not true. College financial aid is available for adult learners, but is often super underutilized by this population, which is really important. Last one, immigrants and refugees are not eligible for Washington College Grant Aid. Give me a green if you think that that is true, that immigrants and refugees don't have eligibility, or a red if you think that immigrants and refugees actually are eligible for this program. All right. Oh, getting some good consensus there. That is absolutely not true. Immigrants and refugees are specifically called out, including even undocumented individuals or individuals that are waiting for an asylee case are all eligible for Washington College Grant Aid if they meet all of the other requirements that are required. So immigration status is not not there. So thank you very much for playing the interactive game. You can clear your reactions now, and we can go to the next slide. So Washington College Grant, just some quick facts. So it is available for low and middle income individuals and families. For a family of 4, you can actually make up to $107,000 a year and be able to get some of this aid. It is a sliding scale, so it goes, you may not get 100% of the opportunity, but again, it's a pretty generous swath of aid that can go through. It pays up to full tuition rates at eligible institutions of higher education for undergraduate programs. So this is not a graduate level program. We've got the awesome investment from the Balmer Foundation and Balmer Scholars for folks that are pursuing those graduate degrees. But for individuals who need to finish out that undergraduate degree to move on that pathway, this is an opportunity to be able to do that. Additionally, it is not just for traditional students, as we mentioned, so adult learners can access. And in fact, adult learners are going to become an increasing focus of the state to be able to reach out to be able to access this entitlement program. This is one of the reasons why it's one of the most generous, is that College Grant is a yes and program. So you don't have to choose between this or other mechanism. You can combine with other aid programs like Pell that you might be eligible for, or a scholarship that you receive to offset the cost of tuition or cost of attendance. And you can combine those to be able to cover that total cost of attendance, because we know, particularly for there's other costs besides tuition, right? Folks need a good laptop to go to school these days. Books and access to software can be expensive. So all of those things can be combined to be able to offset all of those costs. And then right now you're accessing that through college financial aid offices. And so this is why sometimes I think it's kind of the best kept secret out there. This is an entitlement that's available for everybody. There is funding in the bank to be able to pay for everyone that's eligible, but you do have to go through that financial aid application process to be able to determine eligibility and then to award the aid. The last thing I didn't put on here, but I do want to highlight as well, is that College Grant is also eligible for apprentices. We are still the process of how that gets awarded to apprentices is still being worked through by the state agency that oversees College Grant. But all of our apprenticeship program, our apprentices will be eligible to be able to be able to access this financial aid program. And as Renee put on the chat and said the state is underspent on the program, this is absolutely true. We rolled out the one of the nation's best and most generous financial aid programs here in the state, and we did it right before a global pandemic. So that does not, we got off to a little bit of a slow start, but as a result, there's lots of funding that's available there, and our amazing partners in our community and technical colleges and our four-year partners can be able to connect students to that aid. So as you are looking at strategies that your organization can use to get folks back to school, highly recommend reaching out to your community and technical college and our partners at University of Washington, Seattle University, or other four-year folks, and figure out how that dovetails in, particularly for our community providers, our smaller providers that may not have a lot of the resources, operating a little bit on a shoestring budget. This can be a great way to be able to amplify your tuition support that you're providing to upskill your workforce. And again, it's a yes and program. So figuring out how these things can work together, I think, is a real opportunity. And if you think you might be interested in learning more about this is something that HILT in 2023 could dive into a little bit as part of our information exchange. Would love to hear if anybody's interested in this, and feel free to ping me or just drop something right in the chat right now if this is something we should take a deeper dive into.
Thank you, Ryan. That's great. I think I see Susie.
Yeah, Susie?
You guys know I always have questions. Would this be appropriate for somebody who's already begun school and is having a dickens of a time paying for it?
Yes.
Okay, I've got people I know on our staff who are in that spot earning their bachelor's. So they would be appropriate to go to a financial aid office and learn about this.
Absolutely. And, a lot of times I think people don't fill out the application forms because they assume they make too much money, or I'm working and I'm not eligible, or financial aid is only for 18 and 19-year-old students and not available for adults. So we want to break down some of those myths and get this get this up there, and that the information out to folks. Dan put a question in the chat: was this covered at the Washington Workforce Conference? I did not hear anything about that yesterday. I attended yesterday, but not today. I know WASAC, Washington Student Achievement Council, is the agency that oversees this. Inez from WASAC focuses on adult learners, and she was presenting today. I'm not sure how much she was presenting on College Grant versus some of the other initiatives. Awesome. Good deal. Thanks for the great questions. Oh, and then I will hand it over to my other friendly co-convener, Shalane, to talk about all the great resources available through WIOA and WorkSource.
Hi, thank you, everybody. I hope to keep this brief, but also informative, and I'll have some time for questions as well. James, go ahead and go to the next slide. So my other hat that I wear is within the Workforce Development Council. So I've worked in workforce development for over 15 years, connecting people to training and jobs. So we hear a lot about the public workforce funding with WIOA. Some people call it WIOA or WIOA. And this funding, go ahead and click that button, James, to get some of that text up there. So what I want you to know about this, the quick summary is that it's federal funding and it's workforce funding that is intended to create coordination between education and training dollars. And it goes out to all of the states. Once it gets to the states, it's divided into the areas, the workforce development councils, and they distribute and go from there. So first thing, WorkSource is the office where job seekers or your existing workers would go to find out more about these opportunities. So there are 7 physical buildings that are WorkSource buildings throughout King County, and those are those big dots there. And then beyond that, we partner with a number of different organizations, community-based organizations that are tied into our WorkSource system as connection partners to really help us spread the word about various opportunities to people who are looking for work. Now, I will let you know, sometimes I hear the assumption that if someone's going to WorkSource or they're in a program, it means they don't have skills, it's all entry level. That is not true. When somebody who receives unemployment first gets that orientation, let's say it's one of these tech workers that is laid off from Amazon or Meta or another organization, they are going to get connected to these WorkSource offices and to all of these career counselors and resources who can connect them to other jobs. So I wanted to tell you a little bit about the numbers. There are 35,000 job seekers that are served annually and about 2,000 businesses. And there's 2 sides of it, right? You have the worker-centric side and you also have the business side. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about that job seeker side and how that connects to business. And then I'm also, after that, going to hand it over to my colleague, John Glenn, who will talk about that business side of it. So, because I had been in this field for so long, I know that it's complex. There are so many pieces. And oftentimes, we're really busy in our day-to-day work. And so if we can't find easy, relevant connections to that resource, what happens? It gets underutilized. So I wanted to just go through a couple of different ways that WIOA could assist with talent acquisition and retention for your existing workers or getting new folks in, or just how things could work. So first thing, let's say the need for a worker is career progression. So an example could be you've got a phlebotomist working in a hospital lab and they access tuition from WIO programs to pay for a certified nursing assistant program. Through that, they get assistance with state testing, licensing fees, and then they transition to a CNA position within their hospital. That's one way that this program could help some of your existing talent. Another way, retention and professional development. 2 years ago, WorkSource invested in Coursera as a learning platform to help workers or job seekers upskill as we're in the middle of the pandemic and looking at recovery and seeing where we needed to brush up on our skills. So one example could be you're seeing COVID-19 has increased telehealth, and even with some of your great staff who've been there a long time, some are great at the telehealth and virtual platforms, some aren't. And the patient surveys are showing mixed results. So one thing you could do is connect your staff to the virtual telehealth best practices course that is through University of California, Davis, and have them complete that. And the beauty of the Coursera classes is that they are all self-paced, taught by a lot of excellent universities. There's continuing education classes through Yale, the UC campuses, UW has some on there. There's many, there's thousands. John Hopkins. So there's a lot of resources that if you have existing staff that just want to really keep their skills fresh and be retained, that's the benefit they could access. The other thing, apprenticeship programs. So I know that there have been a number of workforce programs or WIOA programs that have supported prospective apprenticeship candidates to pay for tuition assistance for the medical assistant apprenticeship program. Last, talent acquisition. So some of you know and have taken advantage of it, and some of you don't know, but all businesses in Washington can access the business services team at WorkSource to help explore some recruiting needs. And so I know one of the ways our business services team has done that is, they've held healthcare career pathways presentations to job seekers to explain, how do you get through this crazy talent acquisition system at Kaiser or Swedish or Providence? Like, we know that those are built to make things easier, but sometimes it does make it a little bit complicated to navigate through that. And the other side of things too is that while career pathways within healthcare can sometimes be really clear to those of us in healthcare, it's not always clear to existing staff or people entering the field. And so I know Kaiser and Children's has partnered with our business services team to meet with the career counselors that are in the system that have direct access to job seekers. And they've talked to them about the career pathways and different ways to navigate those systems as well as how people can advance. And I know that's really helpful because what it does is it extends that HR and recruitment arm by leveraging those public workforce systems so that as people are getting laid off or transitioning out of programs or thinking about going to school, as they're having those conversations with career counselors at the WorkSource centers, or at the college workforce education centers, they're able to understand more in depth what those pathways are at your organizations. And so it's really just thinking about how to leverage those, have a wider reach, and really make sure that you are taking advantage of everything that's out there to get your folks connected. And so I know that was a lot, but hopefully those tangible ways are helping get some thoughts and creativity going because the other challenge is how do we really make sure that our existing talent who's already employed at our organizations knows about these opportunities, and how do we help to advance our existing workforce as well as attract that new talent coming in. So I'm going to hand it over to my colleague, John Glenn. And he's going to talk about the business services and kind of what that looks like.
All right. Good morning, everyone. So thanks. Looks like I've got 4 minutes, so I'll cram it in quickly. And so real quick, wanted to let you know, Shalane did an awesome job. WorkSource is not an entity, and it is not a single organization. It is a consortium of partners from education, government, and community-based organizations under one roof. And so that's always where I stop the topic when I talk to businesses. So recruiting, retention, reduction, and resources, those are our job is to help you navigate and provide services as needed. Shalane touched on one of them real quick. One of those are events. As you can imagine, in King County, we've got a plethora of partners, as I mentioned, under one roof. Colleges are doing events, CBOs are doing events, community-based organizations. And so A person on our team is kind of a herder, and she tries to keep track of all that. So our core role is to lead events. For example, today we are doing an event with 5 East Side municipalities, of which there are 6 healthcare partners at that event right now. It started at 10. So we're working with our East Side partners there for 5 different cities and chambers. So we do lead events. We help connect all these partners when we get asked to connect with businesses such as yourself. We provide that warm handoff. We also promote. Businesses do their own events, and then our job is to help promote those on the WorkSource Washington calendar and throughout the system, or with our operator partner getting it out to there. So those are the different, in King County, that's how we kind of operate there. The employer voice is another format. Shalane mentioned we try to bring industry in with those community-based organizations, and those also include outside, those that are not direct WorkSource partners, but others. For example, it could be United Way, Urban League, United Tribes of America. We try to bring all the different organizations that are out there trying to help our underserved populations and provide some sort of employer connections. So the employer voice is a format, and that's what we try to do, and make it inclusive, invite as many as employers as possible. The job board is another one. Of course, there's a compliance function to that. I won't waste your time. OFCCP, EEO, some of the others. That is a tool that's available for you. There's a job match program in there. Monster runs that program currently. So posting your jobs, sourcing talent from there. It's just a tool that's there. Obviously, if you're just relying on that, I'll leave it alone from there, but hopefully it's part of your online strategy. And then work opportunity tax credit is another way we help businesses navigate where do they go, where they can reach certain populations, veterans, persons with a record, youth, homeless, other organizations or tax credits are available through Employment Security Department that you can apply for. And so that's, again, everything around WorkSource is centered around helping those 14 underserved populations that are recognized by the federal government. So retention is another piece. So we help promote a lot. Shared Work is a program that is designed to help businesses through a short transition. And so ESD, it's a business-friendly program run by Employment Security Department. So anytime you have issues like COVID and something happens, you can get through that transition quickly. So the other two that I would want to recognize here are the Customized Training Grant and Job Skills Grant. Those are available for businesses to help upskill their talent, people that might need it internally. And also it is always partnered with a college. And so, for example, last year, Shoreline and SEIU 775, we helped with some of that outreach. They were able to apply for the grant. And so Shoreline is now working with SEIU 775 and helping place individuals there. So these are all taxpayer funded programs. And then our job is to help you kind of navigate where you need to go with it. And so, respectful of time, I think I crammed it all in that 3 minutes. So it's obviously a lot more complex. So I have to spend my day with everybody from Blue Origin all the way to out of the box and explain different items. So always happy to help and talk more as needed.
Thank you so much, John. And just I want to emphasize that John is the go-to person if you're like, hey, I have this idea and we really have this need, but I'm not sure how to solve it. He's the one to help you navigate it, have some one-on-one meetings, get you connected to meet those needs. So yep, he is the one. So his contact info is there, and don't be shy to reach out.
Thanks, everyone.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for all of that great information. And I think in the time that we have remaining, this is an opportunity, I think, for any questions, sort of thinking about whether the things that you heard about today from our public workforce systems Are there questions that you have right now that you'd like to get answered? Or I think Ryan sort of planted the seed. Are there things that you would like to hear more about? Is this something that we might want to, any of these resources, something we might want to take a deeper dive in, whether that's as part of an information exchange or a lunch and learn? And are there any sort of innovative practices that you're currently engaged in, either in terms of talent acquisition, hiring folks, or helping to support your incumbents to access resources that help them progress in their careers? And then I think on the opposite side of that coin, or are there challenges that you're grappling with in those spaces that you would love some input from your peers on? So this is really kind of an open space for some questions, discussion, and I think any call for more information in some different places. I think we have a hand raised. Suzanne, is that your?
Yes, that's my hand, at least my virtual hand. This is a great meeting and just tons of good information. And I thank you for allowing me to continue to follow what's happening. I wanted to think for a second about the data that we're collecting. I hear a lot of traditional things about the number of students, the number of events, the number of tables. Do we have an opportunity to think a little bit more about how we can follow the outcome and the placement of people? So I've trained this many people. They go to these places. What did the students have to say about how it fit? What did employers say about how it fit? So that we can get more clear about where the students are going and how, in particular, on an equity basis, some of our folks who are perhaps more in need of support get that support and make placements to the right settings. And I always ask the hard questions, so sorry about that.
Shauna, can I answer that question? So, Suzanne, we have a mechanism where we track through for me and my group at Renton, I have individual programs that have individual accrediting body standards that we have to make sure we track data for. And so for each one of those, we track it along with our IR department, institutional research, so that we know that where students are going, in terms of what the experience was like. We have an exit interview with the preceptor as well as the student together, so we know how that experience went. And then we know based on, we separate placement from actual hiring. So we know right now, and that was actually my last slide. It actually, we looked at, we have about 95% students that are placed, but then we have 85%, I think 87% that are actually hired. So from a standard of accreditation, we have to make sure we turn that in, because if not, accrediting body will say, well, you just have a program, but you're not placing anybody and they're not getting hired. So that's the purposes of that. But we track it also for future reference. So there it is right there. 95% of our students are hired or placed. 91% are offered early employment, and then 89% are hired on their clinical rotation, which means a lot of our clinical rotations can be an entire quarter. Most of our students are hired after the first couple of weeks. That means that we're doing a pretty good job with training our students. Did that kind of answer your question?
That helps. We're getting closer to what I would think about, which is where are they placed, how fast are they employed? Do we have some idea about? The other thing I would think about is how long people's tenure in their positions, and do they switch jobs quickly once they've got their placement? The reason I asked that last one is, we just got a lot of things about what's the name of it, silent quitting, where people make jobs, make transitions, and we don't know about it. I don't expect that we're going to follow these people like folks waiting for data to drop into our hands, but I do wonder kind of, Christopher, that was really useful information about how many people get placed. And then the next thing I think about is what settings they're placed into, so that we can understand where they go. Do they go to large systems? Do they go to FQHCs and places where there's need and flexibility? Where are we helping place people to?
Yeah, that's a various answer, but I would say that we kind of have an understanding of, for us, exactly where students are actually going. So that kind of helps us for future tense. And then also we have a mentorship program, Suzanne, that looks at having a student in Health and Human Services, for example, as a registered nurse or potential registered nurse. They actually go on to a cycle where before their clinical rotation, they go and they're in the hospital setting with a nurse to see exactly what that looks like every single day to make that determination. And we do it early so that if a student decides they don't want to be a nurse, as a dean, I can take those general education courses toward another program and put them in a program that they're really interested in.
And that's a really important piece that we're interested in. In particular, a lot of people will go into nursing because there's family pressures or just people know it's got a great salary. They may not know that much about what they do. I'm a nurse by background. And so the mentorship program helps a little bit with that. But how people make it into a career that satisfies them is really important. So for example, I listened to my boss at the executive director of Healthcare Authority saying, where are people going if they don't get into the program of choice for them? Where do we find them and how do we get them directed to somewhere else? And so, Chris, it sounds like you're doing a really good job on that. And it's something that I think a lot of people could learn from because, we all assume that it's a straight line trajectory and there aren't a lot of people like me who take that pathway and do their 4 years and get out and really love their job. So being able to find people who may not be making successful transitions through this and find them somewhere else to go is really important also. And that's just not an easy thing, but it's something for us to think about, especially with, the kinds of shortages we have, particularly in behavioral health. So there's a self-interest there in asking that question about if I don't succeed in a nursing program, I drop out or I don't get in, where can we place you to try something else where there's also a need?
Thanks for that question. And thank you, Chris, for the additional context and information there. Other thoughts or questions? Are there things that folks would want to hear more about or that you might be wrestling with that would be a useful touch point with peers here or any of our resource experts in the virtual room? And if not, I think we may be able to wrap up a touch early here. Is there anything else that anyone would want to add for the good of the order before we close?
I have one last thing. I just wanted to promote we're actually on Friday, January 20th. We're hosting a healthcare forum for students, faculty, and staff. And the conversation is to continue conversations on workforce deficiencies in Washington. I think a lot of times when students hear it from the dean or from their instructors or program directors, it's not believable. But if industry partners come in and kind of reiterate, what we tell them during the duration of their time at RTC, it kind of hits home. So I would love to invite anyone that will be able, willing that day to come in, and it will be virtual. So if you have any interest of doing that, I will put my contact information in the chat. I would appreciate if some of you will be able to attend.
And Christopher, this is Suzanne again. Would you be interested in having people attend so that I could come, for example, and see what the programs are like and how the process works? Because that would be interesting for me to do. It would also help me take information to other places that are doing this work, and maybe they could learn new ways to do outreach to their students. So we can keep people connected. I know I can talk to Dan about that also.
All right, sounds good.
And Chris, this is Joe from HILT WABS, and I was curious, when was this event that you were talking about? Was it this Friday or next Friday?
January 20th. Yes, Chris?
Yeah, I couldn't hear him at all. He broke up. Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. Friday, January 20th.
January
noon-
20th. Okay.
Noon to 2 p.m.
Okay. Gotcha. I will reach out to you offline and I'll see how I can support and or attend.
Thank you.
Right. Well, I think I'm going to hand it over to Angie Graves, the fellow HILT captain, to close us out for today.
No. Now, can you hear me? Excellent. Well, hi, everyone. I am just here to just close some things out, talk about some announcements, specifically around HILT and future meetings. There has been a decision as we move forward to keep Thursdays held for anything HILT, anything and everything HILT. So ideally, any meetings that come through, whether it's info exchange, pipeline committee, quarterly meetings, any other committee meetings, should all fall on a Thursday. So it's just a good way to kind of keep that in the back of your mind. And wanted to make sure that everybody is aware of that, and you can hold that. So that's the first announcement. And then really just want to take the time to thank everyone for joining these HILT meetings and participating. The information today's a perfect example of just amazing information that gets shared with our community partners, educational partners, really to help everybody spread the word of what all of the opportunities and options are here in the local area to help us with attracting talent and developing the talent we have in our organizations. I think that we have such a great opportunity because we do have all of these great resources right here in Washington State. So just wanted to say that real quick. Thursday, December 1st is a check-in opportunity for us. So education workforce partners, CBOs, which are our community partners, to help work through strategies and lean into HILT's existing priorities and work streams. So that is a key meeting there. You do need to register for these. So if you're not aware, please ping James here or Ryan and make sure that you have that on your calendar. And then we do have our Q1 meetings that are available through our site to make sure that, and so take a look at those, make sure that you're available and can join any of those that are upcoming as we are kind of finishing out the year, which is so hard to believe. And then obviously there's going to be a lot of great planning for 2023 and what that's going to look like for HILT and how everyone can plug in and keep joining these opportunities to really partner with each other and learn more about what we're all doing. So thank you again, everyone, for being here, for your dedication, for all the work that's moving towards making Washington State and keeping Washington State one of the best places to work. Thoughts, other questions, or anything else I forgot from James or any of our other HILT folks?
I think you did a great job. Thank you, Angie. And thank you to our captains as well. Big virtual round of applause for all of our captains and presenters today. Wonderful, wonderful information. And we really appreciate everyone. And I think we're going to give you back 15 minutes of your day. So that's kind of exciting as well. So thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful week. Have a safe week. Be careful and stay warm. Thank you, everyone.
All right. Thank you. Have a great
Thanks,
day,
everyone.
everybody.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks, Juanita. Great job, Angie.
Woohoo. Not bad. Just pick it up right at the very end. It's been a crazy day. So glad I was able to at least join for a little bit. So thank you.